Let's take a look at the principled shader. I have made this document to explain sort of these different layers in the principled shader itself, and I think we should just dive right in. The subsurface is used a lot when making characters, so you can see how it makes the ears sort of a bit transparent. So this can also be used when making like candles or something out of certain types of plastics. This material here is simply just the subsurface to max, and then in the subsurface radius menu you can choose what colors should go through. So this is RGB. So now it's putting red, basically like red is coming through, and not so much of green and blue. So you can swap these around to see the different effects. The next one down is the metallic. So as you can see here, the one on the far right is just way more sort of reflective. So that's the material that we're looking at now. There's nothing else here except the specular is put to 0.5. And the specular input is really important because that has the Fresnel, and everything has Fresnel. Fresnel is this light behavior that you will probably have seen when you have been standing on the side of a lake and you look straight down into the water and you can see to the bottom of the lake. But if you look out, you will only see the reflection. If you're looking straight down, the light beams are going straight into the water and breaking the surface and going back out. But if you are looking towards the horizon, the light beams are coming in from an angle and they will reflect off the surface and back into your eye. So this object will be more reflective on the edges than on the center. And if you want to make something that looks realistic, you should always have Fresnel, or in principled shader terms, you should have the specular to put to 0.5. Okay, and the specular tint will also just add a tiny bit of the base color into your Fresnel effect. So the next one is roughness, and that's also used a lot. That just simply makes your object rough. So that's the surface roughness. The anisotropic layer, it creates this sort of a radial metallic shader, something that we see on bottom of like pots and pans. To have that effect, you need to put the metallic to top and then have some, well, I don't need the specular tint actually, but you need the roughness to go up, not all the way, but just you have to have some roughness. And then anisotropic up to 1, and then the rotation is basically just sort of determining how this should be on your object. And the anisotropic layer comes with the tangent. So the tangent layer, or the input, is basically just determining on what side this sort of radial effect should be on your object. So the one below that is the sheen. So this is the setup for my sheen. So I have the specular to 0.5, roughness to 1, and no sheen on this one. And on the other one, I have the same settings except sheen up to 10. So what it does, that it sort of just creates this rim light effect. It just brings up the edges a bit more in a sort of a soft way. The next one is the Clearcoat, and that is giving us this sort of look. And it sort of looks like a billiard ball or something, or a glazed ceramic object. So what it does, it is you can have a rough object and then you add the clear coat on top of that, so you have that look or that feel of like sort of glazing on top of your object. And you can also change the roughness of that coat. And the clear coat comes with its own normal input, and I will show you that in a bit. And the next one down is transmission. The transmission is also looking at the IOR, which is index of refraction. And it basically determines the amount of this distortion in the glass. If the IOR is set to 1, there will be no distortion. And the transmission roughness basically makes your glass object look like it's a bit clouded or cloudy. So it's roughness within the object. It's the roughness of that transmission through your object. So the next one down is Emission, and that is just giving light. So you do that simply by just changing the color value in this black field to anything else. And in my case, I just turn it to 1 in the green field of the RGB section. And this is something that you can just play around with. You can even go beyond 1. It doesn't allow you to go if you slide, but you can always left click into a field and type any value you like, and it will just go there. But 1 in this case is sort of recommended as being the top, so sometimes you can break the effect if you go too high. Next one down is the alpha. So you notice if you slide this up and down, your object sort of disappears and appears again. The alpha is mainly used to when you're importing like images or creating sort of cutouts. So here I have imported a logo from the Blender website and put that in as an image texture. It's a PNG that has a transparent background. So the image texture itself comes with two outputs, color and alpha. So I just connected the alpha to alpha and color to base color, and then the principled shader node will understand that and put the logo onto this plane and make the background transparent. And note that I am doing all of this in cycles. It requires an extra step to get this in Eevee. So the next one is the normal. So let's just take a look at how that is set up. You have to either have a bump node or a normal node or normal map node that you connect into the normal, and then you can connect any sort of a normal map or some kind of an image into the height, and then you will sort of get this. So this is basically just sort of a black and white map of skin that I just put into Blender here and run that into the normal, and that will understand that as sort of bumps and sort of bump it in and out. And the good thing about this is that it will react with light in your scene. So if you move your light source around, the shadows on the texture will move accordingly. But it does not create any extra geometry. So if you look closely, this object is still completely and perfectly round and sphere and flat. So now lastly I want to just show you the Clearcoat Normal, and I've also made a little bit of a setup that I'm not going to explain, but it's okay for now. So I have like a sort of a bump map, or the same that I have up here basically. So I have that set up. So now on the one on the left here, it is connected to the Clearcoat Normal, and what that does is that it applies these bumps to the coat, so to the clear coat itself. And if you remember, the clear coat is this sort of the billiard ball or the ceramic object. But if you apply it to the normal input, it will apply it to the object and add the clear coat on top. So don't be afraid to experiment with the principled shader and try out some of these combinations. I hope this was useful and you learned something. And